We're Martha,
Steven,
and Mark.
and this is Code Comment, where the Nice Games Club game devs inspect the code, assets, and design of an indie game in development. In this episode, we scamper through Widget Satchel, a mascot-based platformer Mark and Steven are working on.
So let's start. So, Martha, that means you are going to be playing through this demo of Widget Satchel.
I'm so excited. Ooh, loading.
See, now we've shown this before.
Ooh, loading.
We've shown this before, but we did that that was the Ludum Dare version of it, right?
Yes. That's right. Martha.
There is dialogue.
I'm glad you're excited.
Maybe the last time you played was the Jam version.
It was.
Which is now 5 months ago, I think.
You guys have done so much work on it. I love that loading screen.
So colorful.
Yeah, I figured out, it's funny because our levels are small enough that it does not that they load instantly, but that we're asynchronously loading. So as soon as you launch a level, it loads the next one in the background, which was a fun thing to learn about. And so the loading screen shows up really quickly. So I'm kind of debating removing the word loading because it seems kind of like...
Oh, unnecessary. Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
I can play with all the stuff. Yeah. Let me out. Ha-ha! I win.
So here, we added this first level here to be just a story level. So it's you breaking out of your playpen to go cause mischief.
Oh no, they're stuck.
And we included a lot of these physics objects, which we call junk in the game.
I love it.
Which, the thing I'm most proud of with this is as you collide with them, you don't actually bounce directly into them. You apply a force as you move past. So they don't interfere with the geometry. They can't block your path. They can't be in your way. They just feel like you're actually knocking stuff around.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to sort of tweak that to get it right. And I'm pretty happy with where we ended up.
It looks really good.
And we talked about this in the last episode about tutorializing.
Right.
And we're sort of explaining here what widgets are, which is, it's not complicated, but the idea where the mechanically is the more you collect, the harder it is to jump. They weigh you down.
Yep.
Explaining that to players has been kind of difficult.
Yeah.
So
we're trying a heavy-handed approach right now. Maybe we're planning on going back and revisiting it some.
Yeah. Well, we sort of need to figure out a final solution for it. Yeah, but this first level plays a lot like, at least this first part of it plays very similar to how it did during the Jam. The design, the level design of it, which Steven spent a lot of time sort of racking his brain on. We needed to add a couple things.
Yeah.
But we didn't need to change much. Exactly.
No, yeah.
We're pretty happy with how it ended up.
I'm very satisfied with this first level.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really interested to know more about how you design the levels and what sort of things you think about when you're designing them.
Right. There's a lot of stuff you have to keep track of because of how...
I can go down here.
Yeah. Because of how you have to, you can't just put collectibles willy-nilly because, the more the player gets, the less they can do.
Yeah.
So you have to keep track of that. But you also want to make sure that, because players have a bunch of widgets, they can still engage with something in interesting ways. So you have to keep all of that in mind when designing stuff. Also, it's fun to be a ferret.
So you see here, Martha just fell down these sort of pits.
Yeah.
But in Widget Satchel, you can't die. So we need a way to make it still feel kind of dangerous. But also, in this case, there are actual secrets down here in the danger zones. So as you play the game, you start out not being great at it, but then you get rewarded for the sort of running around and discovery. Yeah. Whereas someone who's like, oh, I'm great at platformers, they actually aren't going to get all those things as quick. So the idea of the game is to be really a friendly sort of discovery kind of system.
Yeah, we play with the player's expectations in a lot of phases.
Yeah, and so you see the camera then changes when it gets down here. So we did a lot of manual control of both the camera and the way that these elements are designed to give you an impression, turn them on their head a little bit. And then you can see there's those two gaps that Martha's jumping over. There was originally going to be a third gap, but we thought that was too punishing.
Yeah.
No.
Because even though it doesn't kill you, it does impede you. Mm-hmm. So the iteration that we've been doing has been a result of a lot of playtesting, not just with other people bringing them in when we can, but just our own sense of what is annoying to do over and over because we have to do it over and over.
Right.
Oh, I see. That one follows me.
Ah, see, that's where you learn that. So that works. So then here is that this was from the very first version where that platform there, you can't get it unless you're carrying almost nothing.
Yep.
And so this is where the player is supposed to sort of learn that. But we've had a hard time with the players not understanding that, thinking like, oh, is there some sort of bonus I need to do? Do I run and jump? Do I hold the jump button? Right. And it's been difficult because it's one thing to have a hard time teaching a player something, but we want to really avoid having the player learn something else or assume things that aren't true.
Learn the wrong lesson.
Exactly. And the game is actually mechanically complicated enough that it was a little harder than we thought, and we're still working at it.
Yeah, I got my widgets. Okay. Where are my stuff?
Yeah.
A doohickey, that's what it's called.
Yep.
Well, I definitely want the wrench because I don't like having to jump over those guys.
It helps also that that's the only thing you can afford right now.
Oh. Well, math. I don't read.
Yeah, what is reading?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah! Smacky.
Also colorful.
Smacky.
So this is the section, I was talking a little bit about this in the last episode, roundtable episode, I'm talking about tutorializing. As soon as you buy a doohickey, you are then faced with a little room here that requires you to use it.
Yeah.
And that's been very useful because it means we have to do a lot less of telling people what button does what. We just force them to be stuck until they figure out which button to press. And that's been pretty useful because it saves us some trouble of having to do a lot more of those more direct tutorial elements.
Right.
Oh my God, I love this. TVs.
Those TVs are amazing. I love those so much.
I'm pretty happy with those. It's really simple. If they just detect a collision, they just turn on or off. It looks more complicated than it is.
Oh, I see. Those guys come back. Whoop.
Right, because not only can you not die, you can't kill in this game.
Aw, that's great.
Just speed up.
You just inconvenience.
Yes.
Don't take my widgets.
I'm definitely enjoying watching people spend more time than they have to in certain sections.
Yeah.
It tells me that this game is fun to play.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I've been trying to put in more like playground areas where people can just mess around with them.
Yeah.
Because I think that that's fun for people.
Yeah, for sure. And like a section like this, you kind of examine, you see clues of, oh, there's something else going on here, you know?
Yeah! All right!
Well, this passes the Martha test.
Okay.
That's good.
Adding this stuff has made this game like my favorite game.
Oh, I'm so glad. Because we talked a lot about like having that, but we never it wasn't mechanically necessary.
Yeah.
But it's really paid off.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of it.
Very good. This is very entertaining.
Yeah.
It's got that destruction that Martha liked.
Mm-hmm. So
Yes.
here's a puzzle that Steven designed.
Yes.
Where you can see, like, you need to get that thing.
No, wait, I did the wrong way. Stop.
And there's actually multiple ways to solve this puzzle. So you see as the robot goes, it changes it back and forth. And so all you have to really do is disrupt the rhythm.
Yeah.
But you can do what Martha did, where you actually go and open the door yourself.
Yep.
And then try to get at it before the robot gets back. Or if you just have the boots, but not the wrench, you can just jump on the robot a little bit.
And that'll stun it.
Oh yeah, you found a little bug in there.
Yay,
Hey.
bugs!
Paying no attention to the physics errors there.
Yay!
Yeah, it's like when you hit those, it gets kind of crazy.
Yeah,
it's using
weird.
that's a box 2D thing, hinge joints.
Oh, sure.
On each of those little segments.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really losing. And the idea is that there's weight on those objects. They have mass, so they're not coming together. They're retaining this sort of stretched out, and they keep reacting. It's if you can put it back together, but because it weighs enough and they're disconnected, it's very weird. I don't know. We need to put some sort of conditional in there.
Okay.
Or I don't know. It's fine.
Not terrible.
Yeah. But it comes up often enough that we
Right.
should probably address it.
Yeah.
Like really just detect for when it happens and then just like reset it, you know, something like that. But because it relies a lot on those physics parameters, I don't
Oh
want to
my
do a lot of...
Yeah!
You know,
I'm sorry, guys. I'm not really doing your game anymore.
No,
I'm just
this
trying to
is-
find more
this
for
is
these
Fantastic,
guys.
yeah.
And yeah, we need a mischief score mark.
Yeah, see, one of the things I've been wanting to do, and the rest of the team is like, sure, whatever. Although actually Sarah's backed me on this, is as you knock things around, to have a hidden metric called mischief, which is how much mischief you cause. And we've been trying to come up with like, how do you recognize it? And then, but not telling the player. So at the end of the game, They're like, you caused X amount of mischief, and then the idea is like a speedrunner goes through the game really fast, gets all the power-ups, has a very low mischief score. But the thing is, this is you're a little a ferret who causes trouble, so mischief should be your goal. So we want to have multiple ways to play the game, and replayability is a big part of our design.
Yeah.
And so having different metrics by which you can score yourself really leans into that in a way that's fun.
Ooh, this animation feels so good.
Yeah.
That like screen shake and stuff.
Yeah.
That was Lane's implementation from the game jam. We've done very little to change.
Right.
That fire stuff where it comes out, I added that sometime later. But for the most part, it's sort of as it was 5 months ago. So here you gotta learn how to use those boots. You just want to hit the robot.
Okay, so what button do I do to boots? Ah! I can't wall jump. There we go. Out of my way, robot. So, ooh, how do I get that? Ducking? No. Okay, this can't get that.
What were you gonna ask? Distracted by the
I
jump.
got distracted by the junk and I don't remember.
Well, it's interesting. So that widget you couldn't get, that requires you to have a different doohickey to get it. And I was testing this with a friend of ours yesterday, and the thing about it's the magnet that you need to get that one.
Yeah.
And the thing about that is that I was a little worried that because in our description when you purchase the doohickeys, they're kind of vague about what they do. You're meant to just sort of discover.
Right.
And also people don't read to text, so we thought we'd just make it more entertaining than tutorially, just kind of try to serve both masters.
Yeah.
But he's made a really interesting point. He said at the very beginning of that section, when you see that widget, if that wasn't there, he had told me, I wouldn't have realized what the magnet could do, because it didn't force you to something you couldn't do. So it's a little different than the tutorial areas, where it's like a bonus. Where he was thinking like, I wonder what this magnet does. And that gave him kind of a, if he didn't have the magnet, he wouldn't have known what that could have done, even before he started to do it. So I thought that was really interesting. It kind of gave me a clue on that there's the language is a little bit more complicated than even we were thinking.
Yeah.
About how to explain this stuff to people.
Right.
Which is a problem we sort of set for ourselves.
Yeah.
But
told y'all in the tutorial episode, tutorials are hard.
Yeah, for sure.
Very difficult to get right.
And so this is a puzzle that is really meant to force you to sort of use these switches in a way that isn't just turning on and off a thing. Actually use them as tools to teach you later that they will be part of more complicated puzzles.
Yeah, you controlled mischief here.
Oh, no. There's such a delay. Okay, I have to get him to go up. There we go. No.
People really approach this one very differently. Sometimes people will try to get the robot from one platform to the next and the next. Others will try to get all the platforms level at the same time. It's sort of interesting how many different ways people try it out, you know? So you can see the reward will be that pile of junk on the right.
Yes. Mischief.
So the thing that actually we didn't do a really good job of, Martha, is that do you really know what the boots do?
Do I get to jump higher?
No.
Oh. What do I get to do?
You get to jump on the bots.
Oh. If I can do it accurately. Oh, I see. It doesn't hurt them like Mario, but it just doesn't hurt me.
And you can jump off of them for an extra boost. So the description in the fabricator room says that they're bot stomping boots, but that's not really clear enough, perhaps.
Yeah. Well, everything.
And see, there's a switch you can only hit with the wrench because you have an improved range.
I really thought that was very clever.
I was thinking a lot about this section here is that there is no tool, once you're in this section, there is no tool that will let you get out of it and go back. And that's kind of anti the pattern we've established.
Yeah.
So we definitely have to change that.
Right,
That's
yeah.
my bad.
That's all good.
I designed that section kind of at the last minute. Like right here, there should be some way, either a lift or a bot you can jump on to get you back up so you can keep exploring.
Yeah.
Because one of the things about this second level in particular is that you have a lot of options to double back and try things and go this way, then go that way. And this section at the end kind of violates that.
Yeah, I have enjoyed that in the other levels.
Yeah.
Where it feels you get rewarded so easily for exploring, and I really like that.
Good.
So when you design levels, do you design? You were saying this section you designed, Mark.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you divide up a level?
Yeah, that's a good question. So what we do is we've separated parts of a level into blocks. We found that we could, well, at least for me personally, I've been designing the levels in little chunks, like little pieces of puzzles or little fun places to run around in and stuff. And so what we're doing is once we've designed a certain set of blocks, we'll start putting those into a level. And then we'll just combine them and stuff, and we'll update them as we go in that level. But that's how we've been designing them, is in chunks. And so Mark designed that last part of the level 2, and I went in and I added in widgets and such.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's cool.
So here at the end of our 2-level demo.
Yeah, I made it.
Yay!
The goal of Sprocket, your character, is to escape the space station, and then what I want to do at the end is to give you an option. You get all your widgets, and then eventually you build a shuttlecraft. And depending on how many widgets you get through the whole game, you get a particular type of shuttlecraft. And it's like a real fancy one or a really low end one. And then you escape, and then you just have an option to just go back.
I want more things.
You just want to go back to your playpen or whatever. It's not really a life or death story. It's just this kind of fun sort of deal. Okay, so here we are in the project. I'm taking the wheel here. So Martha, you've got questions for us. Let us answer them. You were asking earlier about how we designed the levels.
Yeah, I would love to see, are they all laid out in Unity, or are you generating them with code, or how does that work?
So here is section. We call it section 1 because in this demo that we're making, we're kind of mix and matching these blocks. But you can see the different sections here. You can see there's a secret fabricator room here at the beginning of the level. Kind of anyway. All right. So the way we do it is you can see here we have our basic tools. One of the things I'm really proud of is having this one object that handles the camera, canvas, everything. So when we make new levels, you just throw in this one object and it is suddenly a Widget Satchel level.
Yeah.
Which
is really nice. It has all this stuff built in. And we have a library called a nested prefabs library, which kind of works. It's not great, but that's how we have these different sub prefabs.
That you can manage individually.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. It's not as nice as we thought it would be when we implement it, so we don't use it a lot.
But it's useful really, for certain things like the scene
for example,
management that you have there.
And then we do have an object here called editor tools, which is just specifically designed for things we want to do for debugging.
Which is the best.
It's very useful, yeah. And this goes back, I think Lane built the first version of this during the jam. And it's been incredibly useful. So you can award the different doohickeys when you start the level or at any point, or you can override the widget value so we can test out different scenarios. And the thing I added this week was this turn on scene management on play, because scene management contains a bunch of stuff. So when you click, you end up clicking into the scene management object, and it's very tedious. So when we're editing, we tend to turn this off. And then we can, actually edit objects. But then we hit play.
And then it's not there.
Right. So I made a little thing that says, turn it back on if you forgot to. So that was very useful.
Which is also the best.
It's very useful. Yeah, it makes it a lot easier. So the thing that I've been most interested in, because for a long time, Lane and Steven were the ones who were doing a lot of the design, the level design.
Yeah.
And so I was building tools for us. So you can see level 1, part 1 is this section, and we call it a block in the game.
Right.
And if you turn it off, you can see that it's actually just a section of the level.
Oh, cool.
And then we've structured it so that each section has different types of objects. So we have, here's all the junk. It's its own little thing. It should be in a folder, but But so we have a different thing for, here we call it foreground art. So we'll turn that off. And we can see
neat.
that we actually build, because you can see a lot of the tile work is it's designed, right? It's manually created. And so we wanted to separate that task from the actual designing of platforms and stuff.
Yeah.
So we have this thing called level geometry, which includes actually all of the actual platforms. And then these are objects that
Scene management.
yeah, thank you. I got to turn that off now. Okay, so here, let me turn off the background layer as well.
Sure.
Boink. All right, so here is our section. So what we have is it's a very simple sprite that has a box collider attached to it. But one of the things that I added very early on was this auto snap script. So it actually moves in a grid level.
That's so cool.
You can design, because our design is based on blocks because it's a platformer, and then also for sizing.
Oh, cool.
Like yeah, it's very, very useful, and it allows us to quickly prototype. Oops, I'm hitting the wrong. I'll edit that out. I'm hitting the wrong. Okay, so yeah, so it's really easy to prototype these levels just by drawing in these blocks. And the other thing visually that's interesting is when you play the level, you notice the shadows in the background, and that is a plugin, a library we use from some local developers called Super fast soft shadows. Vengeance uses it really well.
Yeah.
It's a really good way to add some polish. It is super fast and it's very low impact, and it adds a lot of fun things. So that's also for us, it's a part of the aesthetic design. So you can see this object here. Why do we have an extra object here? And the reason is because this one casts a shadow. So I just have this little script which changes the color of the thing, so we can design for which of these blocks will cast shadows and which won't. Because you don't want all of them to cast shadows because everything will be dark.
Right.
And so that's a part of the visual design of the game. And because,
that's so cool.
Because it's not a roguelike, it's not a procedurally generated thing, everything is sort of handcrafted in this game. And but the first step is to lay out these blocks, and it makes it very simple for us to work separately on these things. And then once, say, Steven is done with a section here, I go in and add all the tiles, and the tiles are all the same game object, and they have different parameters here. So we can say which level is it part of?
Oh, cool.
Right? Which style of block is it? And then how wide is the tile width thing? So I have a bunch of these tiles I designed, and they're all part of a sprite sheet. And then not only that, I built a system where, let me undo all of this, where we do layer ordering. So you can see that all the tiles have see that white line at the top? That's the floor, right? So all the tiles are 1.1 units tall. If you can see,
you can see the little squares in there.
Yeah, you can see how it's little overhang
very
here,
slightly,
right?
yeah.
So this overhang then goes over top of the floor part of the one below it, and so that way visually you can just sort of draw these things on here, and then so yeah, right there you can see this floor here is just covered up. And so that way you don't have to have a separate object for this floor. And now ordering these by layers, I have a script. If you watch the order in layer here, you watch that it changes as you move it vertically up and down. So you can see it disappears.
I didn't know that feature of it. That's great.
So you don't have to do that manually. Now, sometimes, for example, you have this object here, which you don't want to have two of these objects. You just do want to put it on top. So you have this extra slider, layer order plus. Or no, layer order. I don't know what I'm doing here. It's very silly. But so I could send it to the back. I can, if it's on the same layer as the one beside it, then Unity will just randomly layer it in which the order it draws it.
That's Z fighting.
Yeah, that's Z fighting. So I built a thing where you definitely want this one on top, but it'll only be on top if it's vertically above. So if I put that there, but if I can add to the layer here manually. So it's a lot of, I was really, really invested in making tools that would make level design simple and fast.
Right.
And it took a lot of time, but it has been so worth it.
It has. I'm able to chunk or get these blocks made really fast, really quickly now because of all these tools we have.
Yeah, it's very really useful.
Yeah.
And so the same as with the background art. You have different levels, and they're all tiled, and you have different styles for each of them, and on and on.
And that allows Mark to be very creative with how he.
I get to draw in Unity, which is like it's easier to design these, and so I don't have the asset files on this machine, so I can't quite show. But like I have all of these just built in. Animate is the tool I generally use, Adobe Animate, for these kinds of. It's all vector drawing, so I can then export them out as any size I want to. And if we pull up the actual resources here, we can see.
Oh, they're tiles.
So here is, here's the sprite sheet. Now I use a different program called Texture Packer to create this. So I export these all as individual files, and then it's a third-party program. I think it's like $20. It's incredibly useful, and then it just generates the Unity sprite sheet. Now you can in Unity you can load these as separate files, but I've been trained to pre-optimize a little bit, so I have them as power of 2 sprite sheets here, and then you can see inside each of these. Unity does a really good job of having these. You can see these different things. So this top layer here, you can see that I have the top section sort of like as part of the repeat there. Yeah. I'm not using the terms correctly, but so if you can see the texture here, as we make it larger, you can see that top part stays put, which is very useful. So it's been, leaning into a lot of the tools that are available and sort of making them work for us has been really, really useful.
That is so cool.
Mm-hmm.
What about the character?
Oh, well, let's take a look at Sprocket, eh?
Yeah.
So here's Sprocket, and Sprocket has, an idle animation and all these different things. And you can see these are frame by frame because Sprocket is a hand animated character. So if we look at, it's done frame by frame, and then there are some things that are not. And but the thing that we have here is if you look at the satchel, now the satchel will change the size depending on its own how many widgets you have.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Now the satchel then has to be animated separately with the body of the character, so you can see how it's moving, but it's not. We're not making. Think of the dimensionality, how many individual frames you need to have all the different characters. Right. So, for example, you see these frame by frame are the various states that Sprocket can be in, the body of Sprocket, and that's hand animated. Mm-hmm. But then you can see the satchel here is animated along a curve, like you do, anything in the animation for Unity, and it's just a fairly simple tween back and forth. But then it's done to match up with the other objects. So it's a complete mix of Unity animation and frame by frame hand drawn animation in a way that's meant to be fairly consistent, but then also allows you to do things like here we have the socks body. So that is the body there. But let's say if your socks get stolen, then this is the body that it's replaced with. If you get the boots. The Jeff's boots, as you got in your playthrough, you get this body. Mm-hmm. Now this is done because in my animation program I can turn these layers on and off and export them up by frame. But all of the different animations here, you can see that animating these components frame by frame in Unity is very tedious. Right? On the other hand, the satchel itself does need to have its own animation properties. So animating that in Unity is required. Uh-huh. And so it's sort of random, but it's all done. There's a method to the madness of what parts are animated or not. So for example, the this arm is animated in Unity because it needs to go on top of the satchel. That's kind of the only reason. So it's kind of a strange mix. Now, in the left and right arm, they also have different things you can get. So if in this arm, this is the one that's animated in Unity, but sometimes you have the magnet arm, although that's not showing up strangely, but whatever. And then let's see.
Looks like wrench arm.
Yeah, so wrench arm here, you have the empty arm, which does not have the wrench, and then the wrench arm that has the wrench, and then they're animated on the body. So in idle, when they sort of dip left and right, they're animated using the same set of properties. But then individually, so you can see this is actually hand animated, so I can get these smear frames in here, right? And so it is a complete mix, but you can actually see this here. This is actually the size, or actually I think it's the scale. So you can actually see the scale of the sprite goes up a little bit.
Yeah, it does.
This was just done after the fact because it kind of was more dynamic. This could have been done as part of the original set of frames. It just wasn't. So it's there's some back and forth to it, but it's been not attacking, in which case nothing happens. So the animation is built that way in a way that I'm pretty happy with. There's also, when you get Key's card, you get a little key card there.
Oh,
and then
cute.
that has to be animated with everything else in Unity, right? But at the same time, like these kinds of things on the tail, the head moves separate. Doing it, Unity, I would say, in 2018.1 particularly, Unity has a lot better animation tools.
Yeah.
One of the things you used to not be able to do is you can see these handles here. And if we go to weighted handles, this is brand new to 2018, where you can actually weight the curves. It used to be
cool.
that everything in Unity was that's not the right one. Everything in Unity, you had to make a bunch of different. You couldn't stretch them out. Oh, I get still weighted. Anyway, you get my point. Anyone who's used Unity will understand how big a deal it is. And I am a traditional animator in a lot of ways. And so I try to do as much out of Unity as possible. And that is part of what led to this. But now that it's built, I'm actually really happy with it. And if I had these better tools that Unity 2018 now has, I don't know if I would have had as successful a result because I would have tried to do more of it in Unity. And it still isn't a fully featured animation program. It's a lot better than it used to be.
Yeah.
It's just not as good as it could be.
Right.
Takes time. Yeah, exactly.
For sure. But about the socks that you brought up before, Martha. The reason for the socks is that while you were playing the game, you picked up a few of like different pairs of socks and stuff. And they're just little extra bonuses that pop up and say, hey, there's a little dialogue on the bottom. The reason for those socks is because, if we wanted to reward the players for like exploring and finding new things and all of this other stuff. Socks. Fancy socks. What kind of socks are those?
These are the quarter socks with the red heel.
The red heel.
Yeah.
I like it. So the reason for the socks is like we wanted to reward the player for looking and exploring and finding new things, but we can't keep rewarding the player with widgets because if you give them more widgets, they become slower and it's harder to get through the level.
Yeah.
And so what we decided on eventually was giving players extra rewards that weigh nothing, like socks, because Sprocket likes socks.
That makes perfect sense.
Yes.
I like socks too. I like wearing two different pairs of socks, just like Sprocket.
So one of the things we have for these is right now in this current demo, you collect these socks, you get this fun message, and then that's it. And we created this object called Trinket because we want to have other collectibles, perhaps.
Yeah.
And we've done this thing where we have these scriptable objects that have the descriptions, and I built this localization system, which is kind of nice.
Oh yeah.
We don't have the energy to actually do a lot of translation, but I wanted to get this in here now so we wouldn't have to, build it later. Mm-hmm. So this has been nice and all, but right now when you collect them, nothing happens. The game doesn't keep track. It just destroys it, and you get this fun message, and that's great. But the idea then is to put these in an inventory. So in Widget Satchel, you'll have an extensive inventory, but it will have nothing but socks.
Yes.
So there's just one type of object that you can collect, or that you can at least show in your inventory. We'll have other things you can pick up, but that will be the only thing. And that's a bit of a parody kind of idea. But also, you'll be able to go into the menu, check out your inventory, and then you'll be able to actually change what socks that Sprocket is wearing.
Yes.
And now if you actually, if you think back to the animation that we were showing you, the different body animations, there were 4 types. There was Sprocket as is, there was Sprocket without socks, Sprocket without the satchel strap here, and then Sprocket with the boots. Now, if we have like 30 pairs of socks, it's going to be way too many animation frames to keep running all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to do some rethinking on that. And so that's definitely a case of like having to do a little bit of rebuilding. I think what I'm going to probably be doing is having one body type and then and I am going to probably have to animate in Unity all of the different sock objects, but I'll be able to animate left foot and right foot once and then swap out the socks, which also, because I'll be animating them separately anyway, we might as well allow you to mix and match socks.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's no reason to not let you do that.
Yes.
So, I mean, a lot of our creative decisions get boiled into a lot of our architectural decisions. And that's been a blast because one of the things that we were talking about before is the game is still what it was in the jam. It's just a lot more going on. We built on so much more of it.
Right.
But every creative decision we've made has been followed on from the decision we made prior.
Right. And that's very different from how we approached Clawbreaker in that we like just wanted to finish Clawbreaker instead of like expanding upon it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we did add 3 more levels.
We did add 3 more levels, yes. Yeah. But like we don't have like an adventure mode or anything in Clawbreaker, which that'd be interesting.
But those different philosophies, it's a credit to Widget Satchel in that we came up with the core of an idea that we want to expand on, but it's especially a credit to Clawbreaker in that what you ended up with at the end of that jam is a complete thing.
Right.
Like if you play the jam version of Widget Satchel, you'll get the idea, but it is not in any way a complete experience.
Yeah.
People really enjoyed it and they kind of saw where it was going to go, but just finishing it was not an option for us. We had to do more with it.
Yeah.
So it really, it's very much dependent on the type of project you end up with.
Totally.
In that situation we're all in, which is when you finish a jam and you're like, let's keep going,
Yeah. So another thing that you wanted to talk about, Stephen, is sound.
Yes.
The music system.
Well, I specifically because I am completely unfamiliar with it. I do some of the coding in this. Actually, I did a little bit of the coding. I think I only did the enemies. Pretty sure.
That's something we can talk about too.
Yes.
I'll take a look at that.
That'll be something. But I wanted to know about the music because as like Sprocket grabs widgets and things, the music will change to follow suit with like also like how Sprocket jumps and how fast he moves.
Yeah. So I can show this in action in the editor here. Okay, so I'm going to change this.
It's free aspect.
Free aspect is the enemy of console games.
True that.
Yeah, we do so much manual camera work that we need to limit the aspect ratio. Otherwise, it starts to break the experience. And I'm a console gamer. I know you are too, Stephen. But I remember earlier our conversations, we were talking about this because I was designing the HUD and everything. And Lane comes from a PC background, so it didn't occur to him, or rather, it didn't occur to me that you could have free aspect games.
Oh yeah.
Like that seemed to me like to break the experience in a way that like is obviously just not true, but I didn't understand that. But we ended up sticking with that partly because it's important to the design of our levels. Okay, so music here. You can see that when Sprocket has no widgets, you have an empty weight class here, and as you pick them up, these change. And so what we can do is we go into the editor tools. We can change how many widgets Sprocket has. And you can see now Sprocket has an ample amount of widgets, which is 30. And you can see that these audio snapshots change what music is playing.
Oh, cool.
So you see the way that we built this and the way that Sarah wrote the music for this. Sarah Ferret, who has been on the show before and does all the music for this game, built these structures where there are 2 melody tracks and 6 percussion tracks. And they change as you have different weight classes. So you can see when you have none, you see these change here.
Oh, yeah.
And you hear how sort of light and poppy the music is. But then as soon as you get a ton of widgets,
dang.
Suddenly it's slower and it's heavier.
That's so cool.
But and the instrumentation changes a little bit, but it's very subtle, and sometimes it bothers me when people don't notice it. But the truth is like they feel it. Like that it happens in the background, and it's as a Sprocket moves slower and doesn't jump as high, and like the music is a huge important part to why that works at all.
Yep.
And it's been very nice to have this. So in the background, all 8 of these tracks are all playing simultaneously. And then we're using Unity's audio mixer system to just change which snapshot it draws from. So then also, if you pause the game, and Martha, if you want to actually turn the controller on, and then you can just hit a start, and you can see what happens.
So hit start.
Yep. So when you pause the game, what it does is it has a different thing where it actually changes. It's a pretty common thing where you can listen to it. You can hear this melody, but it has a low pass filter on it. So it just changes. It turns off all the percussion tracks. It just kind of makes it like the sort of heart of the music, but in kind of an echoey way. So we have different systems for that. And so when we also have a different snapshot for when you enter we call it the shop here, but it's in the fabricator room. And the thing about the fabricator track is we want it to start when you reach the fabricator rather than just go into the looping.
Oh,
so we have
yeah.
a little bit of extra code there to change to that a snapshot, turn all the other tracks down, but then also play that track. And it does loop. But then when you leave the shop or leave the fabricator room, it goes back to whatever snapshot applied to you. And then it waits a second or two, and then it stops the shop music. So that we can, so it's a fairly flexible system. So we built it for this, like all music's playing all the time. But it also can work for songs that we want to actually time out and have direct control over. And then it's not fully complete here, but you can see our groups here. We have everything's parented under music track, and then we have sound effects. This needs to be a little bit more detailed, but then in the menu, you can go in and turn music or sound effects on or off, and then it can just independently of these snapshots, it can just mute these higher level tracks.
Okay.
The system's not built out for that yet, but that's going to have to be in the final version.
Fascinating.
That is really cool.
And we use something very similar to this, Martha, in Listen Up 4 Eyes.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, that was a jam game that Martha and I worked on.
Maybe we'll show it sometime on Code Comment.
Yeah.
I'd be up for that.
So Steven,
Yes.
enemies.
Right.
What's up with them?
They do things sometimes. Okay. What's interesting about the enemies is they previously been almost exclusively used coroutines to like do almost anything.
Which are
Yes, coroutines are they're not separately threaded in Unity apparently, but they're code you can run like in synchronous with other bits of code. They're like update things, but like a separate update.
okay.
And so I think I was really obsessed with coroutines when we did the jam, and so I made the whole thing in using coroutines, which we realized was not the greatest way of doing that, and so we changed it to be
even your start returns the numerator.
hey, that it's useful for this.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically, I mean, I just coded it so that the enemies just move, and then they use line casts to determine if they've hit a wall or if they don't have any, if the platform they're on is ended. And then it will flip them in the opposite direction to get them to, not do that.
Oh, see, I didn't turn scene management back on, but it's gonna go on.
Hey, because we got that fancy code.
Waiting
Hold
for
yeah.
it to load. Waiting more for loading. Time to load. Load. Too bad there isn't that cool load screen. There we go.
So you can see that Steven put these gizmos on here, these line draws to show off.
So you can see what's happening specifically.
That's been really
that's
useful
so cool.
for debugging. Absolutely.
Yes.
This is something I didn't know anything about. Is actually using these like debug and gizmo tools that you and Lane both were much more familiar with, and so that's been really useful to get an education on for me.
Yeah. So when the enemy AI first starts, they don't move at all. Because I guess I wasn't sure exactly if they were like going to be on the platform or not. So I made it so that they wait until they've detected ground, and then they will use that as their main platform, and then we'll move around on that platform. There are also mean bots like that one that will chase after Sprocket if they see you in the line of sight. They have, if you can you click their
Aggressive.
Yeah, they have a detection radius, and if they detect Sprocket in that radius, they will attack. What used to happen with the bots though is that like they all used to be mean bots. I think they were all green though, but they all used to be mean bots if Sprocket had certain widgets, a certain amount of widgets over.
They actually use the same script, so we have some vestigials on both sides. Right. But yeah, the aggression threshold is 0, which means it's always aggressive.
Yeah.
Whereas on the not so mean bot, what did we do for this? The threshold is impossibly high.
Right.
Gotcha.
So we might want to make different scripts for these. I don't know. It's still a little bit of a cruft to get out, but they both work pretty well actually. But that was definitely a early design decision was to like, when you have no widgets, then like you're not a threat.
Right.
Because the bots, the idea is that they clean up the station. So when you are carrying all this junk, they want to go after you. So the idea was
they don't do a very good job of cleaning up.
They really don't.
No.
They're mostly the mess.
Yeah.
And so but then as we were building out the game and making it more of a puzzly type experience and less of a action platformer, we realized that it would actually be better to have a bot that was always friendly and one that was always mean. That played better with player expectations. We used to have, I designed this HUD element for like an alarm system for like when you would be detected. And it was just nobody got it. And I couldn't really get the metaphor just right.
Yeah.
And so that was part of the reason why we scrapped it as well, is that we couldn't make it good, I think. And so I'm much happier with this.
This is much, and it's very clear that this is more of a threat than the another bot.
Yeah,
Because
just
of the different colors and such.
they use like a similar color scheme, but like they're sort of inverted a little bit.
Right.
And even one of the things that visually I've been really pleased with is like if you look at they're still color balanced. So you see the sort of loops underneath.
Oh, yeah.
I'm using a tone of this for the body, but I'm using a lighter color to give the better contrast. You don't really notice that at first, but this has been a fun. A lot of this is really, for me, it's been a lot of building these systems and tools for us. But my principal job that nobody else on the team touches at all is the art. Mm-hmm. And so it's been really, I've been having a blast doing that, but I don't think about that as my job as much because it's actually, I spend maybe the least amount of time on it because building these structures is a lot more important. And I try to do this art as fast as possible so I don't have to come back to it.
Right. Also
little things like
thing,
this has been enjoyable.
Yeah. Also, another thing that the enemies do is they get attracted by the magnet. They get pulled by that, and then Sprocket can like lift them and move them into a different position. Which is kind of neat. And it goes into the puzzle mechanics.
Puzzles, yeah. That's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I can show you a little bit of the part of the level you didn't see to get you an idea for. So this is the section you were in, right?
Yeah.
That you made your way through. But if you had the magnet here, you could pull this switch, and then you'd go up to this area. So there's a couple little things here where if you have the boots, for example, you can jump on this bot to get here, and then like, well, how do I get over there? You can actually use the magnet to pull this far. And then we have a puzzle again here where you want to pull the bot. Now this is later in the game where we can assume you have, or at least not assume, but we can, some players will have both the boots and the magnet.
Right.
And so we design elements that require you to have both. But and so if you don't have both, it's supposed to be you're supposed to understand it and then want to do some replayability. And because it's a 2-level demo, isn't a full expression of this idea.
Yeah.
And like sections like this for players who just started and only have the wrench, for example, it's not a fun section. So we need a lot of work to do. Mm-hmm. And the longer the game gets, the more we can design for these specific scenarios. Anyways, so what's fun about this part that I really like is that you pull the bot over with the magnet, and then you can jump up to get this. But that then, when you get to this puzzle, this is the puzzle I designed that I'm probably the most proud of. Is if you're standing here, you can pull this switch, which opens this door, right? But it closes this door. So what you want is you want it to be in sequence. But not just that. If you pull this switch, this bot will just close it again because these switches are linked. And so this teaches you about how the systems all work together. And so the solution to this actually is to bring the bot that you pulled over here all the way over so that this bot will back and forth. And you saw the sort of clock bot that Steven designed earlier in the level. And so we're trying to build up a language from pieces and expressions of how these go together that the player will slowly understand. And every time we introduce a new one, it's built from previous ones.
Yeah.
That's the idea anyway. And so, that was really fun to do. So hopefully, and this whole section was designed to be completed multiple ways. So if you have just the wrench, you can go this way and get up here. If you have just the magnet, you can go up this way and then go down here. If you have just the boots, you can go this way. And so I'm not sure this is really well balanced at all, frankly, but because we kind of made it quickly. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of the idea that the game should have multiple playthroughs. But also, if you have a lot of things, you've been playing really well, you should be able to go through it and kind of pretzel your way through the level and get the most optimal path. Yeah. And that's, Steven, that's your biggest job, is designing the optimal path through our levels and through the whole game. Right. It's a big job.
Yeah, it's a big job. A whole lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
Trying to wrap my head around it.
Yep.
But it's been fun. I've enjoyed it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much for telling me about the game. It's been really cool to see behind the scenes and see all the new stuff you've added.
Yeah, it's been really fun to show it off.
Thanks for watching. Code Comment is just one part of our game dev program, Nice Games Club, which, if you're nice, you can subscribe to on YouTube as well as wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and all the other things at Nice Games Club. And if you want to know more about the show or your nice hosts, you can go to nicegames.club.
So until we start again, remember to
Play nice
And make nice.